ESPN just released a list of their top 60 quarterbacks of the last 20 years, and Oklahoma is well represented. Now, this article is behind a paywall, so I don't want to give too much away, but it is an interesting list that I wanted to make a few comments on. This list was made by Bill Connolly, and the first thing Connolly points out is the quantum leap made in the quality of quarterback play in the 21st century. It's really difficult to compare players of different eras, which is why I'm glad this list sticks with the last 20 years, because there's enough controversy as it is without comparing QBs from earlier eras. And this article was written specifically because of the quantum leap made at the quarterback position in this century. But to start off, 6 Sooners made the list, which is twice as many as any other school. Oklahoma really is QBU. But before I get to who they are, I want to talk about some other notable people on and not on the list. First of all, Todd Reesing made the list. Todd Reesing from Kansas comes in at number 55. Some people might be too young to remember, and it's almost difficult for me to believe now, but Kansas won a BCS Bowl once upon a time, and the on-field architect of that team was Todd Reesing. Now, he also had Aqib Talib to help him out on defense, but Reesing in his career threw for over 11,000 yards, completed 64% of his passes, and accounted for over 100 TDs in his career. He was a darn good college quarterback. And what's interesting is that right ahead of him at 54 is Patrick Mahomes. Yes, it's sort of shocking that Patrick Mahomes is that far down the list. Now remember that this doesn't take NFL production into account. Nevertheless, Patrick Mahomes being that low is a little curious because his stats were crazy. He was that Texas Tech team. But you gotta wonder if he'd be higher on the list if he'd won more games at Tech. But Mahomes put up crazy numbers. I don't know. Should he be higher on the list? What do you think? Another thing is that Ohio State had 2 quarterbacks make the list, Troy Smith and Justin Fields. I'm not counting Joe Burrow, who's obviously on the list because Joe Burrow did his damage at LSU. But Troy Smith and Justin Fields made the list, but not Dwayne Haskins. That's interesting. Smith won the Heisman in 2006, which was really kind of a down year overall for college football, if you ask me. He did play more than 1 year. Dwayne Haskins really only started for 1 year, but it was a heck of a year. It was significantly better than Troy Smith's Heisman year. I have a soft spot for the triple option, so I like watching the service academies, and by far, the best quarterback at any service academy this century was Keenan Reynolds, and he made the list. He actually rushed for more yards than he passed for and scored way more touchdowns on the ground than he did through the air, but he wasn't necessarily a bad passer. He had a TD-INT ratio of 31-8. I mean, the guy wasn't going to win a Heisman, but he was really fun to watch. Another Big 12 quarterback that made the list was Eric Crouch. And if there's any quarterback that shows you just how much things have changed since 2000, it's Eric Crouch. He was the last great option quarterback at Nebraska. The dude won the Heisman in 2001 by completing 55% of his passes for 1,500 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. He ran for 1,100 yards and scored 18 touchdowns that year. But I don't care how good your rushing numbers are nowadays, if you throw 7 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, you're not even in the conversation. Nevertheless, Eric Crouch was really tough. Eric Crouch was a great option quarterback, very fun to watch, except for maybe that one game in 2001. We don't need to talk about that. Other Big 12 quarterbacks on the list include Mason Rudolph, Colin Klein, Chase Daniel, Graham Harrell, Colt McCoy, Robert Griffin, and Vince Young. And RG3 and VY both made the top 10. Another guy that made the list that intrigues me is Colin Kaepernick. And even though he only had a couple good seasons in the NFL, in college, he ran the pistol to perfection at Nevada. And that was a pretty new offense. That might have been a brand new offense at the time, and he ran it well. And they were the only team that could challenge Boise State in the WAC at the time, and they beat Boise in a classic in 2010. Case Keenum made the list at 22 overall, which to me makes sense. Now, I have a soft spot in my heart for the University of Houston since I grew up in Houston, and you can't disrespect his production. The guy threw for over 19,000 yards in a college career. Over 19,000. And for over 150 touchdowns. The numbers alone make him deserving of a spot on this list. Now, should he be lower than 22? I don't know. I think 22 is a good spot. What do you think? There were also some MAC quarterbacks that I liked to watch that made the list. Byron Leftwich from Marshall. He was famous for that epic comeback in the 2001 GMAC Bowl. I know that's a long time ago. It's an obscure bowl. But his team got really far behind, and he brought him back and won the game. Dan Lefevre from Central Michigan was another one. He threw for nearly 13,000 yards in his career and was pretty dangerous with his legs too. And he led Central Michigan to 3 MAC titles. Jordan Lynch from Northern Illinois was also a fun mobile quarterback to watch that's on this list. In his senior year, he threw for almost 2,900 yards and rushed for over 1,900 yards and finished 3rd in the Heisman voting. The dude with his legs was an absolute monster. He also led his team to an Orange Bowl appearance. So now, who are the OU guys on the list? Well, first we got Landry Jones at 36, and I think he's on the list for the sheer numbers he put up. I also think that a lot of OU fans don't give him the appreciation he deserves. I don't think I do, because when I think of Landry, I think of interceptions. And he did throw a lot of interceptions, but he also won us a lot of games. You don't start for 4 years at OU without being pretty good, and he set lots of school and Big 12 records in the process. Jason White comes in at number 30, and this is a good pick to me because of the evolution that he made, and Bill Connolly points this out, how he started out as a mobile quarterback, but then turned into a statuesque pocket passer and won the Heisman. And he had one of the prettiest deep balls I had ever seen up to that point. And he, of course, won the Heisman in 2003. And then Jalen Hurts comes in at number 23. Now, he's technically also a Bama quarterback, right? That's where he played most of his career. But here's the thing. He's not on this list at all if he doesn't transfer to OU, right? He's not on this list if he doesn't come to OU. Lincoln Riley put him on this list. I mean, Jalen Hurts was good, but if he doesn't transfer, he's behind Tua, right? And so Lincoln Riley really helps put Jalen on this list. And I got to make sure that I give Jalen credit for his hard work that he put in too. Let me sort of backpedal on that a bit. The next one is Sam Bradford at 15. And what I think about with Sam Bradford is what could have been. That national title game at the end of the 2008 season. A couple goal line missed opportunities. If DeMarco had played in that game, OU would have won. Changed my mind. And then, okay, we get into the top 10. There are 2 guys left on this list. You know who they are. At number 7 is Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray comes in at number 7. And number 1, the number 1 quarterback on this list of the 21st century is Baker Mayfield. Now that is interesting to me. If I had been making this list myself, I would have probably flipped them. Maybe put Baker at 7 and Kyler at 1. Kyler, to me, is the best quarterback to ever play at the University of Oklahoma. Now, it's clear that Bill Connolly valued longevity and production over the long haul more than he valued having just one big year, for the most part. Not all the time, because he does have Cam Newton at number 2, who was pretty much a one and done at Auburn. But is that the best methodology? What do you think? I tend to value longevity, but I also think that if I were to take one guy, Kyler or Baker, I think I might go with Kyler in a single college game. Now, I don't fault anybody who would go with Baker. No, I think Kyler's a little bit better, but I think Baker is my favorite overall, if that makes sense. I also think that one thing that Bill Connolly valued was players that lifted a program to a new level rather than those that helped a team maintain a high level. In general, I think that's what he valued. And because he points out how Baker rejuvenated Oklahoma's offense and really Oklahoma as a team. He points out that OU didn't have an outright Big 12 title since 2010, by the time Baker was the starter. And so I think he really valued Baker's 3 Big 12 titles, his playoff appearances, whereas Kyler got a playoff appearance and won a Heisman just like Baker, but the program was already there thanks to Baker. And so that's why I think he ranked Baker ahead of Kyler. There are also some notable omissions from this list, not necessarily from OU guys, but from other teams. Guys like Sam Darnold didn't make the list. Matthew Stafford, A.J. McCarron, Dwayne Haskins. And I think it's interesting because Cam Newton comes in at number 2, and he was a one and done at Auburn. Dwayne Haskins really only started 1 year at Ohio State, but he's not on the list at all, even though he had an all-timer of a year. Also, Brad Banks is on the list, who was a good Iowa quarterback. He was fun to watch. But I feel like if you put Brad Banks on the list, you also got to put Brad Smith on the list from Missouri, because he had a better overall career than Brad Banks did. Nevertheless, I'm not going to give him a hard time about it. This is a really tough task and a very subjective task. But let me know what you think of the list. My biggest takeaway was that OU has 6 quarterbacks on the list. Nobody else has more than 3. Oklahoma is QBU.